Hello and welcome to Along the Way Life's Journey. I'm your host, Carl Buccellato. I'm going to do something a little different today. I know all of us have been thinking very deeply and retrospectively after the murder of Charlie Kirk this week. And I spent a good deal of time, like you, I'm sure, praying for him and his family and his children. It was just terrible thing, senseless thing. And I kept watching more and more of the news and what they unfolded with this young man who committed this crime. And I saw his mother's statement saying that she had this wonderful young boy that she sent away to university, and he came back completely different, radicalized, professing a Tifa and living in a lifestyle that she didn't even recognize any longer. And I thought to myself, of all the shootings that have occurred this year, and there have been many of them, a great many of them by young people, our youngest generations out there committing murders. This young man, Louis, he just walked up to a man he didn't even know about, an executive with an insurance company, shot him dead in the street. What brings a person to kill another person that they have no connection with? What brings a person to take a human life because they believe they disagree with how they think or how they believe, what their faith is, or their position politically on situations in life? And I know that part of that problem is something that we've been talking about for a long time. So I asked the question, who killed Charlie Kirk? I think the killing of Charlie Kirk goes far beyond this one man. I think it goes to a war on our children, a very war on our children. I wrote something out that's very long, and I can't really express it easily like this, the way I'm talking to you right now, heartfelt as I am. I'm going to have to read part of it, so please indulge me, and I apologize for that. But I have to read it because it just speaks so much of what I have come to understand about the problem in this country, the problem with our children, the problem on the universities. I've done a lot of study on it in the last couple of days, getting more and more information to make sure I'm accurate and correct. So please indulge me while I do this. So here we go. The war on our children. The war on our children has turned deadly. Let that sink in for a moment. That isn't hyperbole. It's a stark, horrifying reality we woke up to with the news of Charlie Kirk's death. He was murdered senselessly outside of a university where he was scheduled to share his views, to engage in the very act of free expression our institutions claim to champion. This wasn't some random situation, isolated tragedy of a kind, or a bolt from the blue. No, this was a predictable, the inevitable, and frankly, the terrifying outcome of an ideology that has a relentlessly declared war, not just on our values, not just on our nation, but on our children. For years, we've seen the red flags wavering frantically on our college campuses. For years, we've watched as the warning signs flash brightly and brighter in our faces. And for years, far too many of us, or perhaps all of us, were told we're overreacting, that it was just youthful idealism or students expressing themselves. Well, today the consequences of that apathy, that willful blindness, that dangerous appeasement are staring us down, cold and unblinkingly. Today we confront the deadly cost of our collective silence. Radicalization isn't some sudden, spontaneous combustion. It doesn't happen overnight, like flipping a switch. It's a meticulously crafted process, a deliberate, insidious psychological campaign designed to transform ordinary kids like yours and mine, often stable, from loving homes, transform them into weapons. It's a journey down a dark path, and the research chillingly shows us it typically unfolds in three distinct destructive phases. First, there's a psychological submission. This is where the individual is systematically broken down. Think about it. These kids are isolated, often subtly at first, from their own existing social network, their families, their previous sources of comfort and identity. Confusion is sown, making them question their reality, their beliefs, everything they once held dear. They lose their autonomy, becoming increasingly dependent on the recruiters, the group, the new family that offers them belonging and answers. It's an emotional radicalization, where the goal is to make them feel lost, vulnerable, and desperate for direction. Then comes the political religious indoctrination. Once an individual is psychologically vulnerable, open to the new ideas, they're rebuilt, but not in their own image. Instead, they're imbued with a new identity, one perfectly aligned with the extremist ideology being peddled. This isn't just about learning new facts. It's about complete reframing of a world, a new lens through which everything is viewed. It's psychological manipulation, akin to what you've seen in totalitarian cultures, designed to eliminate their personal identity and replace it with a collective group identity. We saw that happen throughout many communist nations. We saw that happen with the Nazis in the 1930s, with the Hitler Youths. We saw that many, many times across the ideological cultures that have come to be tyranny. They are taught who the enemy is, what the truth is, and why their previous beliefs were wrong or evil. Finally, we arrive at violent disinhabitation or legitimatization. This is the phase where the unthinkable becomes not just thinkable, but justifiable, even morally necessary. Violence is validated, associated with perceived oppression or mistreatment. The enemy is dehumanized, making it easier to inflict pain upon them. The group convinces them that violence isn't just an option, it's the only option. A righteous act required to achieve their goals, to fight for justice, to improve their world. They're told their actions are not just acceptable, but heroic. And where, pray tell, have these radical architects found their most fertile ground? Our universities. These aren't just places of learning anymore, are they? Far too often they've devolved into ideological battlefields, hothouses, where young, impressionable minds are being molded and shaped, not by critical thought and diverse perspectives, but by radical professors and relentless peer pressure. Students are exposed to extremist views not just in specialized courses, but through loaded lectures, one-sided discussions, and a constant barrage of online content shared within these tightly knit, often echo-chambered communities. The very freedom and anonymity that once identified campus life, meant to foster intellectual exploration, now frequently facilitates the unchecked spread of dangerous ideas, especially when they're packaged persuasively, promising simple solutions to complex problems. It's a perfect storm for radicalization. The ideological conflict fueling these escalating violences isn't just a healthy political disagreement, a difference of opinion. The difference of opinion we can debate over coffee. No, this is a fundamental, deeply entrenched clash between traditional values, things like faith, family, and the individual freedom, and an increasingly aggressive, often intolerant brand of progressive activism. Charlie Kirk, with his unwavering conservative views, represented everything these radicals despise. He was a vocal proponent of those traditional values, and that made him a target. In an environment where disagreement has been twisted into justification for violence, his very existence, his willingness to speak his mind, became a perceived threat. We've seen this play out with groups like Antifa and extremist factions, while they loudly proclaim to oppose fascism, to fight for justice. Their actions often paint a far more sinister picture. They've meticulously constructed a narrative where violence against conservatives, against anyone who dares to hold differing views, isn't just acceptable. It's presented as a morally required act. a righteous crusade. They've convinced themselves that they're on the inside of justice, heroically fighting oppression, when in reality, they are often the perpetrators of that aggression. It's a classic case of becoming the very thing you claim to hate. But here's the uncomfortable, gut-wrenching truth we absolutely must face head-on. No denying it. We let this happen. Yes, we, you and I. Our apathy, our refusal to speak up when those warning signs flicker to life, our appeasement of extremist ideologies. This, folks, is what enabled the murder of Charlie Kirk to occur. Every single time we stayed silent when a conservative speaker was shouted down, harassed, or even physically attacked on the campus, we contributed. Every time we looked away when professors cloaked in academic authority chose to indoctrinate rather than truly educate, we added another brick in this wall of complicity. The radicalization process thrives. It festers. It grows exponentially in environments where nobody challenges it. When the university administrators are driven by fear of controversy, a misguided sense of neutrality, allow violent protesters shut down free speech. They are complicit when social media platforms driven by engagement metrics and profits spread misinformation and extremist content without consequence. They too are complicit. And when parents, with the best interests in heart, send their kids to expensive indoctrination camps disguised as colleges, blindly trusting that the system they too are inadvertently complicit. We all are. In some way, we're all complicit. If we continue to ignore the rot, this isn't about politics anymore. This has transcended the left-right divide. This is about saving our children, literally saving them from becoming casualties in a war they didn't start, a war being waged for their very minds and souls. Universities should be preparing young people for successful careers, equipping them with critical thinking skills and fostering innovation, not turning them into ideological soldiers for a divisive cause. The focus should be on stem cells, on practical skills, on real-world problem solving, not on political activism and grievance studies that often breed resentment and division. The solution, the path forward, starts with brutal honesty, acknowledgement. We have a problem, a big one. We can't keep pretending this is just youthful idealism gone too far. When a kid from a stable family, a seemingly normal kid, becomes radicalized enough to commit murder, we have to look beyond the individual. We need to examine the entire system that enabled it, the ecosystem that nurtured such an extremism, not just punish the individual while the system continues to churn out more. Yes, I think this man, whoever he is, who committed this murder, must pay the total fee due to society. He must not be let off because a group set him astray, or because some academic said something that distorted his way of thinking, or because a culture says we must not incriminate or criminalize people who commit minor breach of rule. Everyone must pay their share, and he certainly must. The education reform system must absolutely be critical. We must promote genuine critical thinking, not just regurgitation of approved narratives. We need to instill robust media literacy so students can discern fact from propaganda, so they can see through the manipulative tactics of extremists, regardless of their stripe. Teachers must return to their core mission, to educate, to inspire curiosity, not to act as political activists pushing their own agendas. And certainly there are many of them with their own agendas, not only in universities, but in grade schools and in high schools as well. Universities must reclaim their original purpose, returning to their core mission of preparing students for productive lives and careers, not radicalizing them for political courses. Digital platforms, too, must need to face accountability. Let's be honest, social media companies profit immensely from engagement. Nothing drives engagement quite like outrage, division, and extremism. They need to implement and enforce stricter moderation policies, not just performative gestures. They should be held responsible when their platforms actively facilitate radicalization, when they become breeding grounds for hate and violence. It's time for them to prioritize public safety over profits. But most importantly, we need genuine, widespread community engagement. Parents, you must be involved in your children's education, not just financially, but actively. Know what they're being taught, what ideas they're exposed to, and challenge anything that seems off. Alumni, stop donating blindly to universities that promote extremism, that stifle free speech, that actively push agendas that are tearing our society apart. Vote with your dollars. Employers, consider the implication of hiring from programs that seem to produce radical activists rather than skilled, productive workers. Demand better from our educational institutions. This, my friend, is where you come in. If you're watching this, listening to these words, and you agree that enough is enough, then it's time to act. Hit that subscribe button, share this video far and wide as far as you can. Tell everyone you know. We need to build a movement, a powerful chorus of Americans who refuse to accept this terrifying new normal where political violence is justified by ideology. We can't sit idly by. Charlie Kirk's murder wasn't just a tragedy, a moment of profound sorrow. It was a searing, undeniable wake-up call. The war on our children has turned deadly. We simply cannot afford to stay silent any longer. Every day we delay, every moment we hesitate, more young, impressionable minds are being poisoned by radical ideology. Every moment we do nothing, more families risk losing their children. Not to disease or accident, but the insidious grip of extremism. The choice before us is crystal clear, stark, and urgent. We either stand up and fight back against this radicalization machine, or we watch passively as it claims more victims, as it devours more of our youth. We either demand accountability, real accountability, from our educational institutions, from our digital platforms, and from our very selves, or we accept that our universities will continue to produce violent extremists instead of productive citizens. Our children's futures, the very future of our society, depends entirely on the decisions we make today, right now, right here. Will we continue down this path of appeasement, the path that enabled Charlie Kirk's murder? Or will we finally stand up, united, and say, never again? Will we accept our universities as the ideological battlegrounds, places of division and hatred? Or will we demand a return to being centers of true learning, intellectual curiosity, and boundless opportunity? The radical left has indeed declared war on our values, on our nation, and most tragically, on our children. They've shown through their actions and their rhetoric that they are willing to use violence to achieve their goals. The question, the defining question of our time, is this: are we willing to fight back, not with guns, but with our actions? Are we willing to fight back with truth, with courage, with unwavering determination to save our children from their toxic, destructive ideology? Charlie Kirk's blood is, in a very real sense, on all our hands. If we don't act, it's on us. But his death doesn't have to be in vain. It can and it must be the catalyst that finally wakes us up to the war being waged on our own children. The time for apathy is over. The time for action is now. Let's make his sacrifice mean something, not just a tick in history, not just something that goes down in the history book or a program that someone can look back on in 10 years and say, remember this? What happened when? What are we going to do about this? How are we going to change this? How are we going to save our children? It's all up to us. It's up to you and it's up to me. I tell you every week, you have your own story to tell. This is our communal story. This is the story of our generation, of our lifetime, to reach out and save our children. They are our future. these children that are being wasted. Look back over this last year, all the many of them who are radicalized, that went wild with guns. It's no way to live for a future. We must take our action. Bonhoeffer said during the Hitler regime, when good men stand by and do nothing, evil prevails. Let's not stand by and do nothing. Have a wonderful day. Love someone today. Tell somebody hello before it's too late. God bless.